Hi everyone, welcome to Sage's Garage. Today's video is yet again another Beetle video. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get to working on the Triumph. I am just as disappointed as you are, but unfortunately life is just lifing right now, okay? And I unfortunately not been able to get to it. I still plan to have it at British Car Day. It's getting a really close deadline, but it's gonna happen. I just have to think positively, and so do you. If you're curious, one of the things I've been up to, today I hosted my very own cafe, and that was super fun. So I'm just shutting that down for the day and thought I would make this intro and outro for you. Today's video was actually filmed, I think, almost 2 years ago now. This was filmed when I needed to get Pascal safetied. And to get it safetied, basically the rocker panels were too rusty, and so it was unsafe because I couldn't like jack it up or anything like that. So we went ahead and Bondoed it. Today's video is basically just Bondoing it, the process of that, how we did it, how it went. Unfortunately, I didn't take any after videos, like not really any good ones, so you can kind of see. I'll show you what it's looking like now, almost 2 years later. Spoiler alert, it's not very good. But it was what we needed to do at the time. It got the car safety, it got on the road, that was all that mattered. But it's definitely about time to Bondo it up again and try and fix it better than we did the last time. Without further ado, here is today's video. I'm so grateful we were able to borrow my neighbor's hoist, so that made this project so much easier. But we basically just started by bringing the car into his garage. Here's kind of a bit of an overview of the rust. You can't see it too well, but anyways, we brought it over to the hoist and we just started lifting it up. This is also my first time seeing underneath the car, and yeah, it is pretty rusty. That is not looking too good for sure. And now I can definitely see why, for the safety, they needed this fixed. So anyways, the first step of the process was removing the wheels. So mine had this weird like safety plastic feature where, I don't know, the lug nuts are like covered by this little plastic, and so I have a special tool to remove that. And then once I could take the plastic off, then I can actually start by removing the wheel. I tried to help with this, but they were really stuck on there. It was tricky. Here are what my rotors look like and my brakes. That was good to get a look of and just check that they were all good. I didn't take them apart this time, but you know, just good to get a little peek. We started by taking off this firewall sort of situation I had in here, and that let us expose more of the rocker panels so that we could see if they had a lot of rust too, and kind of make a plan of everywhere that we needed to repair. And this is what it was looking like once we got all that off. So yeah, there's a lot of rust, a lot of crumbling, and not looking too good there. We scraped out everything that we could. We got out the extra little chunks and the peeling paint, and then we actually used like a little vacuum hose to kind of suction out any of the other little bits, so that way when we were attaching the Bondo, we wouldn't be attaching it to all these little loose particles. I think this is like the fender area. We wanted to kind of take that apart and detach it. Maybe it's like the wheel covering area, just so that we could access the rocker even better and kind of cover it more completely. Then we just started grinding away. We took off whatever rust we could that wasn't, you know, structural and didn't really have any use for us. It was just kind of rusty at that point. Then we had some of this kind of old aluminum, and we traced out a piece of paper with the shape that we wanted to make it, and then we drew that on the aluminum so that we could cut out a kind of similar shaped piece, and that way we could shape it around the rocker better and it would actually fit nicely. Then we started with shaping it and kind of basically getting it to the shape that we needed for it to fit nicely on the car and as flush as possible. We clamped it up in several spots so that it would be shaped the way that we needed it to be to cover this area. And then we ended up using, I believe, self-tapping screws to kind of secure it to the car. We were trying to get this bolt off here, so we used some heat just to try and loosen it up, and I think it worked. Oh, and I guess I lied. It definitely did not work. So here we are grinding it off instead. Now we're moving on to the outer part of the rocker panel, and you can kind of see inside there. It's definitely rusty. The paint was really peeling, so I just went ahead and peeled it more, which, I mean, looking at this video seems like that was a terrible idea, but obviously at the time we did it for a reason. I'm sure it was all rusted underneath there, and we wanted to make sure we actually thoroughly were able to cover it. So that would be why I guess we removed all that paint, but I did not realize we removed that much paint. It doesn't look like it even now. So, I mean, I guess that means we did a good job, but that's a lot of paint I'm removing in this clip, so that is actually scary. And underneath, there was actually so much loose rust and paint that I actually just ended up peeling all of that off too. That way we could create a stronger structure and we weren't just attaching things to rust that were also going to peel off. Then I just went ahead and kind of grinded down the side to see if we could get to some actual good metal and remove all the outer rust. Some sections I was definitely able to do that, just remove the surface rust, but some sections it was rust all the way through, so, you know, oh well. Thankfully, as you can see, we did manage to get to some actual solid metal there, which was exciting. And then this part, what we're doing is we needed to actually put some backing material so that the Bondo had something to actually stick to. So we used this steel mesh that we found and we kind of shaped it to this area of the car. And then we ground down any more rust or loose pieces. And then we marked down if there was any excess of that steel mesh that we had to kind of cut off. And then it was time to attach. We ended up using rivets to attach it. I think that we just at the time found that that was the best way to do it. So we put rivets in there and attached that steel mesh. And now we are assessing this other area. Now we're kind of on the main part of the rocker panel, which was the main issue for the safety. Also, this material is like kind of sticky. So it's like a steel mesh, but it's kind of sticky also, which was really interesting. And it was kind of weird to work with, but I mean, it being sticky helped us like attach it better. So basically we made a plan with what we wanted to cover and how much material we needed, and then we cut it out and we started assembling it and then cut off whatever excess we needed. Once we had fully attached that aluminum piece, we ground down all the edges so that they would be smoother and more flush to the car, and that way when we put the Bondo, there wasn't just like some crazy edge. Now, in most places we put rivets, but there were a few places where we weren't able to, so we ended up putting screws in instead. So you'll see us drilling some pilot holes and then putting some screws in. Now that we've done all of that prep work, it's finally time to open up the Bondo and start using it. So it kind of comes with two pieces. It comes with this cream hardener and then also the actual Bondo solution. And so apparently it's like really tricky to work with, and we had to move really fast because it dries quickly. So we put some onto this like table. We put some onto this table and then we put in the correct amount of cream hardener. And we mixed all that up together, making sure to close up the Bondo container so that it didn't dry out. And we wanted to make sure we had enough out that would cover everything, so we got more than we needed just to be safe. But then we mixed in that cream hardener, and then it was time to actually get to work and put it on the car. This was an all hands on deck moment because, again, like I said, this stuff was really hard to work with, and we had to make sure it didn't dry on us when we weren't ready for it to dry. So we all got to work. We applied it everywhere. We put that mesh seal, and we tried to put it as smoothly as possible, but it was more important that we covered all the areas that needed to be covered. We were running out of time in our day, and I did need to get this car back on the road, so we used a heat gun to speed up the process of drying once we were happy with how everything was laid out on the car. Once everything was completely dry, we sanded it all down to make it completely smooth, or as smooth as we could get it, because it was very lumpy bumpy when we applied it, so sanding it out really helped us smooth it. Once we were happy with how everything had dried and how everything was looking, it was time to start the reassembly process. So we just started putting everything back together like we took it apart. Once the wheel was back on, we decided to take a little peek under the car, and so in case you were curious, here is how the underneath of my car was looking about 2 years ago. There's definitely some rust that was starting down there, so I am definitely scared to know what it looks like now after 2 years in a Canadian winter with lots of salt on the road and unfortunately no undercoating. So hopefully I can figure that all out before this winter starts again. But, I mean, it wasn't too horrible. The Range Rover was much worse when we took a peek under there, but still not great. Now, while we were underneath the car, we noticed that a plastic covering was missing some sort of clip, and so it had been dangling under my car this whole time. So I unfortunately can't remember exactly what we did, but it looks like we just kind of made a new type of way to attach the plastic covering, whether we like drilled in something or we screwed it in. I'm not entirely sure what we did, but we found a way to reattach that plastic covering. And then it was time to lower Pascal down and drive her out of the shop. Unfortunately, like I said in the intro, I didn't really get any afters, so this is as good as you can see as what it looked like when we finished it up, but I will show you what it's looking like today, 2 years after. Well, I know that was a very entertaining video, and I'm sure you loved just hearing me voice over the whole thing, and none of it was a real video. I have no idea why me 2 years ago decided to film it like that and not actually say anything to the camera at any point, but I am sorry for that. 2 years me in the future is definitely feeling the pain of me filming like that, because now the editing work that has to go into it is so much more, even though it looks so much more simple. It is way harder to edit. Here is what my Beetle's rocker panels are looking like now. Definitely rough, definitely rusty. You can definitely see the little metal sticking through from where we did Bondo it, so definitely time to cover that up and just fix it, because the rust is getting out of hand, okay? Look at the door. I know. Like, moment of silence for the door, okay? This is devastating. I am really, really hoping that next week's video will be a Triumph update. Again, I'm sorry that I don't have one for you this week, but again, at this point, it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I will see you next time. Bye!